Okay, I think it's stabilizing now. So, good morning and good afternoon to everybody. I want to thank everyone for joining us today and look forward to a great session. I want to welcome you all to our webinar entitled How to Protect Consumers and Brands to Stay Resilient During the COVID-19 Pandemic. My name's Ben Stump. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer for WiseKey, and I have the pleasure of being a moderator for this panel throughout the course of the next hour. Just a couple of housekeeping points for everybody. If you want to ask a question during the course of the webinar, there's a Q&A button on the bottom right of your Zoom window, and you can click on that, and all those questions will come into the panelists. Some of those we may be able to answer in real time in writing, and some of those will hold for Q&A at the end of the session. What we're going to do is I'm going to introduce the panelists. We're going to go through some opening comments and then really spend the second half of the hour talking through Q&A in a collaborative session. So it's really a pleasure for me and an honor to moderate the panel. We've got four very esteemed guests who will be our speakers. We have Frederick, who's a director of illicit trade prevention and smoke-free products at Philip Morris International. Frederick's been with PMI for more than 11 years now, and a lot of his focus is on the strategy and coordination of efforts for protecting against illicit trade and operations. And previous to that, he spent a lot of time consulting and in the areas globally. So it's great to have Frederick on board. We have Carlos Moreno, who's Vice President of Corporate Alliances and Partnerships at WiseKey. And Carlos has been with the company for a long time, and he's got over 20 years of sales and marketing experience and a deep expertise in digital identities and how to bring digital identities to the world and how that relates to our topics today, really about brand protection, consumer engagement, and the fight against illicit trade and counterfeit products. We have Anthony Lemmy, who's a partner and the Chief Revenue Officer at WeCan Group. He's focused on empowering companies to grow with blockchain, and he is looking at and spending a lot of his time bringing multiple arenas and partners together to create larger solutions and technology offers out there in the world, specifically around, again, areas like we're here to discuss today. And then last but certainly not least, we have Pierre Kaufman from IBM, who has been with IBM for almost 20 years now and is very focused on leading the efforts and the evolution of blockchain and its applications in the world, in particular right now with a concentration and focus in Switzerland, but coming to us with a great global experience and background. So to kind of kick things off, counterfeit threats are throughout the market everywhere. It's not something that just affects one specific market or vertical. It's something that spans the industry, from luxury goods to licensed sports apparel to spirits and wine, tobacco, and pretty much every other product that's out there. A lot of people have said, if your product's not being counterfeited, it's probably not a worthwhile product. And so being able to combat that is extremely important for brands and for consumers in the marketplace as well. Counterfeit products, illicit trade, diversion, all of these things, they really rob the brands of not only revenues and profits, but also of their reputation. And they create and expose risks for not only the brands, but also the consumers that are out there. And those risks can even be as great as health risks when we talk about things like medical test kits or home test kits or wearable technologies or even batteries. We've all seen the tragedies that have gone on with counterfeit and illicit batteries in e-cigarettes, for example. And it's not a simple problem to solve. If it was, all of this would not be necessary, right? But it's very complex environment to be able to track and trace products through a supply chain, to be able to provide transparency and certainty and trust, and then to be able to expand that out all the way to the consumer, where the consumer is able to understand that what they have is real, what they have is authentic, and have trust in that. And oftentimes in the past, brands and businesses have taken two very distinct and disparate approaches. One that would try and focus on protecting the supply chain, and another that would try and focus on attracting customers and therefore driving revenues. And when you put those as two separate, disparate things and solutions, not only do you create a less than seamless experience, both internally and externally, but you'll also introduce additional points of vulnerability, which is often a problem that you want to avoid. So bringing these technologies together and offering integrated solutions is something that's very important in the space today. And I think we're all living through this difficult time with the pandemic, and if you think about how COVID and the pandemic has affected and impacted everyone's lives, both from the consumer side and the brand side, how it's seen such a drive and increase in e-commerce and online shopping, which was already a growing industry at a pace more rapid than most, and now has literally exploded. It's also introduced new points of vulnerability in the supply chain. It's introduced new areas for illicit trade, new opportunities for gray market and diversion. And it's really driving an increase for both awareness and the need for really putting secure digital identities in place, not only for people and products and goods, but for the entire process there within, and how that can be used to better affect brand success, as well as the consumer experience and the consumer's trust in the brand and the products that they're working with. So over the course of the next 50 minutes, the webinar is going to really talk about and explore not only the technologies and solutions, but some of the market landscape that's out there and how we can help in this arena. And probably another very important piece is, how is the evolution of blockchain technology supporting these solutions and offers, and how can that be best leveraged to really bring things together, creating the ultimate trust in the data and in the related communication. So with that, what I'd like to do is start things off by asking Frederick to give his perspective and views on the situation, and excuse me, talk a little bit about the new reality that we're all facing, and how Philip Morris in particular is looking to combat the problem, and how that can help improve and translate into effectively fighting against illicit trade. So Frederick?
Thank you very much, Ben, for the introduction, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all the people listening to this panel. Indeed, a very interesting topic, and a very current actual topic that we're dealing with under the COVID-19 crisis. The illicit trade has definitely surged in the last 8 months. I mean, we all witnessed that. A lot of fraudulent activities, a lot of online scams, and there has been really a focus on trying to create awareness on this. Just to give you a little bit of background on Philip Morris, and then I will get on 2-3 points I like to develop today. Philip Morris, as a leader in the tobacco business, is leading the way with a massive scale business transformation to achieve a smoke-free future, which is essentially to replace cigarettes with better alternatives for the 1.1 billion men and women who are smokers, and they will continue to be, and they will deserve better alternatives. And that massive transformation and that we are tackling, technology has been really at the center of it as a key enabler. We know technology is in our day-to-day life. It's the driver of the fourth industrial revolution. It allows to disrupt entire sectors. And for us in that transformation, where we've invested more than $7 billion, technology has been at the center of R&D, of science, of innovation, of new products development. And we see technology extremely important in the fight against illicit trade, because first, we see it as securing our products, and we have applications for that. Product security means that you are able to protect your consumers ultimately, so that they are exposed to secure products meeting standards, and that can convey them a positive experience. So we use advanced technology on security features for the electronics of our products. The second aspect is about securing the supply chain, and this is tracking and tracing. We secure our distribution internally with all the countries that we have globally, and sometimes with our business partners externally. And we do that with applying serialized coding and a built-in and continuously evolving traceability systems, which allows us to go upstream to track products and to trace them, and as well to generate very valuable data that can be used internally, but as well externally with law enforcement when we have certain cases that we need to investigate. The third aspect of using technology, and which is really at the core of our transformation, is as well to secure the journey of our consumers as they go through the different phases of learning about the product and essentially our novel products, smoke-free products, trying those products, and then buying and living through this journey. And here, this is where the online space kicks in, with the wide exposure that consumers can have on the counterfeit offers, substandard offers, or even online gray sales. I will expand a little bit more on that later on. So definitely, technology is at the core of our transformation. Technology is at the core of tackling illicit trade, given the hyper activity we see on the shift towards more of the digital world. For us, we understand that blockchain is still at an infancy level when you look at industries like us, who have an extremely fast-paced production environment. You know, we talk milliseconds to code our products, but we definitely see a great potential moving forward, and we are always very keen to new technologies and to look at them and to evaluate how they can bring value to our business. The second point I would like to address now is what is PMI doing to fight illicit trade in this new reality, in the COVID reality? I think first, the illicit trade issue is not new, and it's one of the top priority at PMI to address it. We do that with a dedicated global team of experts. We work with our affiliates to tackle this issue. And we as well make sure to control our supply chain. Now, the issue of illicit trade, just to give a bit of sizing, is enormous. We're talking of illicit flows of a value of $1.6 to $2.2 trillion. The value of counterfeit and pirated products are equivalent to almost 3% of world trade value, $500 billion. So we're facing an issue that is of massive scale, and that needs a completely cross-sectoral, cross-functional, and cross-regional cooperation approach. Now, what we do in this pandemic is accelerating what we've been doing, which is to cooperate with public authorities, with the private sectors as well, to build evidence and intelligence that we can share when we see organized crime or networks impacting the supply chain, to be able to address those risks. And it's about training law enforcement with intelligence on the practices that we do, sharing information, doing public and private awareness campaigns. For example, we launched and we were the lead in the US in July of anti-fraudulent goods campaign with some US organizations and other fast mover consumer goods companies, the like of Merck, Tommy Hilfiger, Procter & Gamble. And it was a campaign about informing consumers about the danger of counterfeit online. And one of the motto that was used is, what you see online may not be what you get. I think it's the absolute reality that a lot of people have faced, that we may even have faced ourselves or members of our families, to be lured into counterfeit products, which at the end of the day feed criminal organizations who are behind it. So how can we improve and be more effective in the fight against illicit trade? Illicit trade is a transnational issue in essence. Organized criminal networks work in networks, and we need to have a response similar to them to build bridges, to attack networks, and to follow the leads that they can give us and to eliminate as much as we can. Mowing the lawn means you do not get rid of it. You address it consistently, but if you can make it disappear to a certain part of the supply chain or certain critical aspects of the industries, then this is definitely the focus. So there is an important thing as well I'd like to flag, and that's a reality we've seen even more during this COVID crisis, is the evident gap between the online space and the offline space. As we know, e-commerce has been booming. It's moved from a value of about 380 billion in 2010 to nearly 2 trillion this year, and apparently expected to double again in the next 4 years, up to $4 trillion. And e-commerce relies a lot on the various enablers, such as the web hosting services, the search engines, the marketplaces, the social media places. So a number of actors are actually enabling this digital e-commerce to take place. And what we see is technology has been at the core of this acceleration of e-commerce, but it at the same time a double-edged sword, because the same technology or novel technologies actually allow illicit operators to benefit from it in a negative way and hide behind a veil of anonymity on the web. And I think this is where it's very interesting to see how a digital identity, securing a digital identity, can help in exposing and making this online digital space more secure, so that you know who you're buying from, you know who is the identity of your counterparts. And definitely the technologies such as blockchain or the trust protocols are the core to help facilitate that. Another element which adds on the overarching issue of the online space is the lack of global governance. Regulations are sometimes at their infancy or are being revised, like the Digital Services Act in Europe. So there is really a large effort that needs to be done to look at this entire digital world and put some regulatory measures around it. Just to conclude, I think it requires open dialogue. As I said, there is not a silver bullet to tackle the issue of illicit trade. It's not going to go away, but it needs to be addressed to eliminate what we can, to put more measures where we can, and that can be done with a dialogue, with public-private partnerships, collaborations across industries, cross sectors, with law enforcement and with governments. And that's what we really advocate at Philip Morris, which is that we speak to each other, because the illicit trade issue is not just about tobacco, it's about many consumer goods and goes even far beyond about luring or scamming consumers. Last point I wanted to make is, and that's more specific to PMI, we launched in 2016 a global campaign called PMI Impact, which is an initiative that offers really financing and support public, private, and NGO projects that can tackle or address the illicit trade in a wider sense globally. And we finance about $48 million of 30 projects, of 60 projects in 30 continents, so 30 countries. So it's something that is there as a catalyst and as an engine to address the issue of illicit trade. So these are the points that I wanted to develop. So Ben, thank you very much for the opportunity, and I will leave some space to my colleagues as well on the call to elaborate further. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Frederick. It's a number of excellent points you made there, and I think one of the things we really have to consider is the "what you see is not what you get" comment, and how that affects both the brands themselves as well as the consumers and the consumer experience. And that really goes to your point of communications and collaboration. Because if we're not all working together, the ability to solve these problems becomes very limited. So I think that's a really excellent and key point. And I'd like to ask Carlos Moreno to kind of expand upon that and talk a little bit more about the introduction of the digital identities that Frederick referenced and how those can be used in across all market verticals, and explicitly for creating that authentic consumer experience, if you will, and maybe how that integrates and complements or can be complemented with blockchain. So Carlos?
Sure. Thank you very much, Ben. As well, proud to be part of this panel. It's an interesting discussion that we will have today about this topic, which is a very, very interesting topic. Indeed, WiseKey is already started to work more than 10 years ago in trying to help brands and to fight against counterfeiting and illicit trade with digital identities. You must know that WiseKey core business is really to be a certification authority, which is well known and worldwide recognized. So we do have all these legacy technology that was already able to suit for this. The story of WiseKey into this topic started just out of a discussion together with one of our customers from the watch industry, who asked us if with our digital certificate, we could address the protection of goods, the protection of watches. It was a luxury watch brand who asked us. And we came really quickly to the conclusion that it was possible to do an analogy that a fake product was corresponding to identity theft of a person. And this already was what we were protecting in the past. We are still, of course, protecting identity theft for people, but this was in fact our first steps in the domain of Internet of Things and protecting things over the internet. And this is how WiseKey brand protection offering was born. We start by watches, the watch industry, to prove the concept, but we extended it to other valuable goods in the luxury industry. Meanwhile, we are operating projects in the wine and spirit industry with such a technology. Actually, we are working as well on pharma and other industries that we cannot disclose yet. How it works? It's as simple as when usually we were buying a watch, you are receiving a piece of paper which is signed by the CEO from the brand as a certificate that stating the serial number, the model, and other information legitimating that such timepiece is genuine. Here, in fact, as we were coming into the digital era and digital transformation that almost every enterprise is in currently, we are in fact converting this piece of paper into a digital certificate, which is stored in a secret chip which might be read easily with any NFC reader that is embedded in a mobile. And the information, in order to verify the genuinity of a product and more, is done online through reading this chip with it embedded in the in the product. It might be as well embedded in a card, a companion card that is connected to the product, but it is the way that we are able to legitimate if the product is genuine. It works simply building a tag, just to talk about technology, and this is what the core business of WiseKey is. That might take the form factor adapted to what the product that we want to address. And such a tag is embedding our chip, secure chip, and the chip is provisioned with a birth certificate, which is a digital certificate for the good. And this is indeed, it becomes the digital era and following the life cycle for the entire life cycle of this good. The benefit of this for the brand is that is not only to fight against counterfeiting, but it might bring a playad of additional services and services for the brand, because this action is electronically, and you can automatically activate a warranty of the product, which brings to the brand information on what is happening on the field online. It means that you will know that this product is currently activated by a point of sale somewhere in your retail network. And this is as well a way to detect what might be happening in terms of gray market, because the brand knows where such a product has been shipped and sold. And accordingly, if there is a difference from the destination that such a product should go, the brand is automatically able to detect that something wrong is happening. The benefit of this is as well the traceability, obviously, because you are able to trace the product across a retail network, which is very valuable for any kind of brand. And here I'm talking about any industry. Is important for any industry. In regards of the protection of the consumer, there are two ways that with the digital certificate you are able to protect them. First, of course, is to help the consumer before he's acquiring a good to check the genuinity of the product by reading this tag that I just mentioned, tapping his phone and obtaining the information on the product that the product is genuine, or if he cannot read it, there is something wrong. The other thing is protecting the sovereignty from his profile, from the profile of the consumer. It means that with a secure mobile application that we can provide, the consumer might execute such a kind of transaction, protecting his own information, and those information will be only shared with the brand under their consent. They are keeping the control from their profile during the entire life cycle. So it means that the brand won't know who's the consumer which is behind, except if the consumer consent to do it. So this is as well a very important point. Finally, so this is all that is brought by the platform that one built by WiseKey. We came to the conclusion as well that the extension from those features to use the blockchain technology was bringing another element which is important as well. It is here we are talking about a trust level between multiple stakeholders. Indeed, the capability to store a transaction into a distributed ledger, which is enabled by blockchain technology, is bringing something which is important, is the immutability of transactions. It means that when an operation has been done, is in fact engraved on the stone, And it means that it cannot be extracted or removed by any DBA or any IT operator from the database, because this is spread across the different nodes from the platform. The benefit of this is as well that we can enable the use of smart contracts, and it enables as well the operate transaction with zero knowledge proof capabilities for the benefit of and the efficiency of process, which is as well very, very valuable. All of this is, in fact, an operation that we are trying to build and to extend, teaming with a lot of partners through the Trust Protocol Association, and the partners that are part of this Trust Protocol Association, like the State of Geneva, IBM, Oracle, WCAM, present today as well, and IBM, of course, Orachain and Bilui. Those are partners that are helping us through the Trust Protocol Association to foster the usage of blockchain technology into these to address the problem of illicit trade.
Thank you.
Thank you.
A lot of great points there. One of the things you talked about is the need for trust between multiple entities, and I think that's a key point in that, you know, this is not a situation of one-to-one relationships only. And you heard Frederick speak of this as well. And I think that's a great lead-in for Anthony to talk about how this expands also to the B2B environment, right? And how can the B2B environment help to embrace these types of solutions, and what's the effect and impact of that B2B environment on the brands as well as the consumer and the interaction?
Thank you, Ben, for the intro, and thank you for having me today. So as you briefly explained, Weekend Group is a blockchain venture builder based in Geneva, Switzerland. And yes, we focus on solutions mainly for B2B purposes. And connecting with what Frederick said and Carlos said, we see that the share of digital in our lives has been growing dramatically, and now has reached a point where people realize how security of their data is somehow a topic or an issue. I pretty much think that before that, there was a lot of enthusiasm and discovery of all these digital services. And now, and especially in the last few months with the current situation, people have this realization that it is becoming a very large part of their life that is being transacted or happening on digitally. So, and while this concept of trust is very well understood when it comes to brands for products, that's common in people's life. Like, you buy a product of this brand because there is some trust attached and in that brand, and that might be like one of the main reasons people buy this brand. While on digital, this concept of trust was still a little bit blurry, maybe because people were still discovering and were still very enthusiastic, and they weren't, I don't know, that wasn't top of their mind. Yeah, for sure. And also, yes, there was probably a lack of choice. Like, you could say, like, I trust Google, but what were my alternatives for Google, as an example. So now we see this concept of trust is becoming much more top of mind for people, and so it was already for companies, like Carlos said, but we see this is becoming increasingly a topic that why people come and reach out to us. So if I take a couple of examples. So we've seen in the last 3-4 months 2 types of companies coming to us, and you basically have one type of company that is very well advanced in their digital transformation. They know exactly what they're doing, and they've been on this journey for 20 years or so, and they realize now that new opportunities in terms of infrastructure, like decentralized infrastructure, is allowing them new opportunities to remove some risk, and also allowing them to better manage their data. So basically being able to be more in control of your data. It goes one step further than just only being able to secure your data. So we see that it is becoming like one of the use cases. So that's one type of company. So you're very savvy, and now not only you want to secure your data, but you want to be more in control. The other use case we see are companies that are less advanced in their digital journey, and all of a sudden, maybe these new technologies and everything that has been happening, like both things happening at the same time, makes them realize that there is something that can be done today. For instance, having a decentralized architecture allows you to put several companies and their partners on the same network, where maybe in the past they would not have been comfortable sitting on a digital network, because now that can be done in an extremely safe way. So for example, we are launching a solution in Switzerland for banks and asset managers. And as you can imagine, like they're dealing, it's a very sensitive topic, and some of them have been watching very closely digital transformation, but they haven't been moving as fast as other sectors like FMCG, for instance. Now they understand that this is a new opportunity. Decentralized architecture brings these opportunities, and having all of this data encrypted on a secure network offers them it creates a momentum for them to digitalize some of their workflows. So for instance, for banks and asset manager, we are helping them digitalize their compliance workflows in a very safe way. So if it can be a little bit specific, you need to understand finance, but some of these asset managers deal with 20 banks, and right now, when they have an update in their the way they do business or in the company, they have to update 20 different banks, and they have to do that. And they do that maybe via email, sometimes can be via paper or a mix of both. And so you've got like information floating on different places. And if you replace that and put all of that in a secure network, that's not only adding convenience, but also it adds this like layer of trust, and this allows like better security. So this is, in a nutshell, this is our conviction today that we're moving, it's not moving. This trend of digital convenience clearly still there, but more and more on top of digital convenience, people will want to see more trust, and decentralized technologies and technologies like blockchain are extremely relevant in that context.
Thank you, Anthony. And you know, you started to touch on the key point there of digital transformation, which is really, you know, kind of the fundamental that surrounds everything that's happening, both from an architecture and vendor perspective and from a business and brand perspective. Is, you know, everyone has their own form and version of a digital transformation and what that means to them. And it's really a part about how do these things get brought together to best take advantage of the technologies that are available out there. And Pierre, you've been spending a lot of time helping people and businesses across the world understand the art of the possible as it relates to blockchain and the support of these digital transformations and digital transformation strategies, obviously, as in many cases, as that touches on the topic of illicit trade and counterfeit goods. So Pierre, can you give us your thoughts on kind of the landscape and how everyone's handling this evolution, which we'll call it?
Yes, Ben, of course, if we have an extra 2 or 3 hours, I will be a little bit more complete, but I will try to do it in a couple of minutes. And Ben, thanks, and thank you to all of you here, and morning, good afternoon, and good evening for those joining. And in fact, today is my 20th birthday in IBM. And believe me or not, I have never believed that I would stay 20 years in a company like IBM. But why did I stay? I stay because I usually qualify IBM. I don't need to present IBM, but it's kind of a startup which is 100 years old. A little bit younger than Philip Morris, but I mean, we went through a certain number of evolution over time. And the cool thing about IBM is that we were able, I mean, to evolve over time. And now we're facing this set of evolution. We talked about a digital transformation. We talked about the rise of blockchain. We were talking about AI a couple of years back. We were there, I mean, to help people changing their life, people helping them also to work in a different way. And remember back in the, I think it was in the 70s or in the 80s, so that's more than 50 years ago, we invented the barcode, and this changed the way the people were shopping. So this is again something that while looking at the price of a product, no, you just scan and zip, 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 and this is working. And thanks to the guys that invented that at the time. We can maybe say that in maybe 10 or 20 years regarding blockchain. But I want to stress some of the points here that we touched at the very beginning. Illicit trade, counterfeit product, and being sure that what you're selling to someone is really in a perfect condition and this kind of thing. I mean, this is being now paramount. We're talking about security of data. We're talking also now about this security, I mean, the health of the people, not just about medicine, but about fresh product as an example. And this is some key area that we worked on. And one of the largest blockchain in, would not say the word, but let's say a large blockchain, which is called IBM Food Trust, which is powered by Walmart, the Carrefour, and all of those companies, is currently running on a blockchain. And why? Because then people can trust the quality of the product that they're buying from end to end. We tend to usually focus on those problematics on, let's say, the production of goods. And this is true. I mean, we need to be sure that we have the right product to build something. Would it be cigarettes? Would it be a car? Would it be whatever, you name it? And this is, you need to find the right provenance. Here's your provider, a right provider. And we saw with the COVID, when transport, I mean, ocean transport get hurt by this crisis, that, well, where to find some masks, where to find this, where to find that. Are those masks, I mean, genuine one, yes or no? And Carlos touched about the watchmaking industry. Is that gold coming from, let's say, a sustainable gold mine? Are they child labor? That's kind of the question that where blockchain can help and can provide, I mean, the level of trust that Anthony put as, let's say, a paramount, to be sure that when you're building something and when you're using something, that this is, you can trust in what is built and what you come. Now we see a raise also in also what comes after selling. I mean, let's say downstream or after sales, to be sure that, well, if I like my watch, as Carlos mentioned, am I the rightful owner? Or if I want to resell my watch, how is working the second-hand market? And this kind of stuff is quite important also, to be sure that the product that you have are the rightful product. So security is the paramount. And there are, I mean, so many use cases we worked on. I just mentioned Food Trust for perishable food, which is working, I mean, worldwide. and we're talking about goods and provenance of the goods and traceability of the goods and condition of the goods, you should know that there is a blockchain which is called TradeLens. I mean, you can go on tradelens.com and see this, what this blockchain about. And this blockchain currently handles 60% of the ocean freight, which is going on the goods that are, I mean, sold over this planet. And this is like 80% of the global GDP. So, and this is running on one blockchain. So blockchain works, but blockchain is only, let's say, an enabler to give you the capability, the trust that the data that you can store, you can share. And this may be my last point, because this is a very, very important point. And as Frédéric said, that they're working with the government authorities, as Anthony said that they're working in cross enterprise, as Carlos, as a Trust Protocol Association, they're working with many people together. I mean, you cannot, and we can no longer offer the luxury to work in silo. Blockchain is a de facto silo breaker, but this technology covers only 10 to 20% of the real need. The rest is about digital transformation, optimizing my process, changing my processes, etc. So, and it's now, I think, the perfect time to act and to think a little bit different, to say, well, let's try to work and give a hand to the other ones working with me to be able, I mean, to break those silos. And we paraphrase an old movie back in the 80s for the older one of you, and it's a little bit when the going gets tough that the tough gets going. So we need, we have the capability today to make good, I mean, good quantum leaps working with this new technology. And maybe I conclude with one word, and which is my motto, and no one is immune to a good idea. So wherever you have a good idea, let's work together.
Thank you, Pierre. And, you know, I think obviously a number of really good points in there, but one that's key to understand is blockchain is really an enabler, you know, and I think there's oftentimes a misconception by some folks that aren't as experienced or aren't as expert with blockchain, that the idea of blockchain is the solution. And really blockchain is a layer or an enabler, as you say, that, you know, needs to take advantage of the top applications and become the secure data store and a secure point for those applications. And, you know, it goes to the point of these solutions not being simple and straightforward, but rather being things that are complex and require, exactly as you said, and exactly as we've heard all four panelists mention, something that requires that open communication and collaboration. And it's a key reason, not just blockchain as a tech, but all of this topic can't be addressed in a silo anymore, and needs to be addressed in more of a collaborative position. You know, I think that also touches on the point as we talk about trust of consumer engagement, and you know, Pierre mentioned barcodes from many years ago. You know, they evolved to QR codes, and now you're looking at things like secure NFC to facilitate consumer engagement. But the one of the pieces that will drive success of that engagement is the consumer trusting the communication, trusting that their data is going somewhere secure, and trusting that they're not opening themselves to any other form of spoofing or illicit activity. So I think it all comes together as one. And, you know, since we're here, maybe I'll just ask you, Pierre, if you could touch on your thoughts on how the blockchain technology as part of this solution can be simplified from a consumer perspective, so that a consumer can have trust that the technology is as secure as it is for data storage, because so many consumers hear the word blockchain, and if they're not in the industry, they can get very scared off. So how can people and brands try and help that situation?
So the answer is manifold, and I will put a first part of it. Any IT system, or most of the IT system, will at certain point in time be hacked in a way or or another. It will be harder. It could take a century to do it, but we need to be careful. That doesn't mean that we should not send the information somewhere. The question is about who will, and this is, I'm working also with United Nations and with the governmental entities. The question is about who will be, let's say, the recipient and the one that will store the information. One way was to say, well, we distribute this intelligence all over the planet, and then we're secure. But we see that even after a couple of years, that there are some mining, centers on some place of the planet that are solving kind of the problem on blockchain. So again, blockchain will not solve the problem. It's just a way today to secure the data. Basta. How to trust that? You need to trust the company who is using blockchain and the partner that you have on the market. Would you believe me if I send you, $100 bill, and I send you that and just say, yeah, I just print it at home? You're not going to use this bill. Nonetheless, well, at a certain point in time, you need to trust the guy that give you the bill. You need the guy that gives himself the bill, etc., etc. So the entire chain needs to be secure. And sometimes it's harder. And frankly speaking, today the system are harder to break than what people say. Well, I do not want to store my data on blockchain, but I will post a bunch of things on social media which are quite open. You won't do that in your real life, but you're doing that in your digital life. So the answer is, I think that with the proof that many companies will work and will leverage this technology over time, people and consumer will trust that. This is currently what has been done with Carrefour for fresh food and for Walmart. It's first for the company and then for the consumer at the end of the day, to be sure that they're buying, Escherichia coli free product, etc., and this kind of stuff. But it will come over time.
Yeah, no, that's exactly, I agree completely. And, that's a part of, or you can expand upon that into, data and ownership. And, Anthony, you talked about a lot of the businesses that you're working with, wanting to go one step farther from securing data to being able to control it. And I think, data retention and ownership is a big part of that. So can you expand maybe for a minute on some of the techniques that you're seeing implemented that are helping to secure that data retention and data ownership in a way for your businesses?
Well, I don't think what we've seen is talking about the technical side. It's not so much what people a trigger for people, because it is actually quite complex and it could be quite boring. Sorry, Pierre. But more like the whole, like the way it works actually, and what we think is really interesting is being able to transact and use all of these digital services while being aware of where your data sits, being aware of what data you will share with someone using a service. And then when you stop using that service, then the data still remains where you are. You know where it is. Like, it's not floating around. It's not going like to places you don't even know where it is. And so that is, I think, at the heart of all of this. You've seen like the whole trend about data and big data. Now it's much more about, first of all, data quality. So a lot of people are like talking about a lot of data, but is that data really valuable? And then do you actually do you do everything you have to do to control that data? And I think that is the key question. If you enter it that way, then you can find a technological way to fix this, and that these are examples of solutions that exist today that weren't very known or very big in the past years, becoming getting bigger day after day. And yeah, for instance, blockchain decentralized architecture will allow you to do that. And I think this is going to somehow power the way we use digital services in the future, whether you're for an individual or for companies. So that's.
I totally agree, Anthony, and it's part of what I was saying during my pitch regarding the sovereignty of the identity from the people which are bringing those data to the network. First of all, they would be able, and this is as well the reason why the combination of PKI and digital certificate together with blockchain is the really happening, because you would be able to digitally sign the information that you are putting in whatever data store is blockchain or is not blockchain, but this is already a way to legitimate the ownership of the data. And the second step, it is as well the fact that you if you own your identity, which is obviously the goal from any new business application within the digital era, it is as well that you can bring the consent with who you want to share this data, and you must be able to manage this. It's not a third party which is gonna handle this. Is really the consumer which should keep the control of this. Consumer, customer, whatever.
Yeah, thanks, Carlos. And I know we're at our last moment here, and I know a lot of people have hard stops, and I want to be mindful of everyone's time. So with that, I want to thank everybody who's joined us today. I want to especially thank our esteemed panel of guests. I hope that everyone has found the information and insights to be valuable. And I hope that we'll speak and see you all again, and when we do our next webinar in the future. So with that, have a wonderful day, morning, afternoon, evening, depending on where you are, since I think we've pretty well covered the globe. And again, let me say thank you to all of our panelists in particular, and thank you to all of our participants who have joined.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Jens. Have a nice day.